Lily, the figure began, their voice a sharp contrast to the softness of the room. What do you have to say for yourself? The aroma of a freshly baked apple pie filled the room, yet the sweetness did nothing to ease the tension in the air. Across from a young girl named Lily, a stern figure loomed, their shadow stretching across the floorboards like a silent accusation. Lily's heart raced as she awaited the inevitable. It was Mrs. Jenkins, her neighbor, and the woman who had looked after her since she was just a toddler. Lily knew that tone well. It was one that demanded honesty and respect. "Ma'am," she replied meekly, "I know I did wrong." Her voice quivered slightly, a testament to the fear and the guilt that weighed upon her. She had been caught red-handed, stealing cookies from Mrs. Jenkins' jar earlier that day. It was a mistake she hadn't intended to make, but one that she couldn't take back. Mrs. Jenkins sighed heavily, her eyes filled with disappointment. "Look at me when I'm talking to you," she instructed. Lily's gaze met hers. She saw a fiery determination to teach her a lesson she wouldn't soon forget. "Do you understand the value of honesty?" The question hung in the air, thick with accusation. Lily swallowed hard. "Yes, ma'am," she murmured. The truth was, she hadn't really thought about it until now. The warmth of the kitchen was suddenly stifling, the smell of that pie turning sour in her stomach. Mrs. Jenkins leaned in closer, her expression unyielding. "And do you understand the consequences of dishonesty?" Her voice was steady, leaving no room for doubt. The girl nodded, feeling the weight of her mistake grow heavier with each passing sound. "Yes, ma'am," she managed to choke out. The scolding had begun. It was a dance of words that Lily had never wanted to perform, but now found herself in the center of Mrs. Jenkins' words were a storm, relentless and powerful, and Lily knew she had no choice but to weather them, hoping to emerge on the other side a little wiser, a little stronger. The kitchen clock ticked on, a metronome of rhythm, of her racing thoughts and echoes of "yes, ma'am" and "no, ma'am" that filled the space in between them. As the minutes stretched into what felt like hours, Mrs. Jenkins' voice grew softer, but no less intense. She spoke of trust, of respect, of the delicate threads that bound their community together. Lily listened, her eyes never leaving the woman's, as her words sank in, one by one, like raindrops on a parched earth. "When you lie, Lily," Mrs. Jenkins said, placing a gentle but firm hand on her shoulder, "you don't just hurt me, you hurt yourself and everyone who believes in you. Is that what you want?" Lily's eyes watered, but she held back tears. "No, ma'am," she whispered, her voice shaking with sincerity. She didn't want to be that person, the one who brought pain instead of joy, the one who shattered trust with careless actions. Mrs. Jenkins squeezed her shoulder, her grip a silent promise of support. "Good," she said, her tone slightly less severe, "because I believe in you, and I know you can do better." The words were a balm to Lily's soul, a flicker of hope in the tempest of her guilt. She nodded solemnly, her heart racing as if she awaited the next question, the next step in this unexpected lesson that would shape her understanding of the world. "Now I want you to think about the people that you love," Mrs. Jenkins continued, her eyes boring into Lily's. "How would you feel if they lied to you? Would you still trust them?" Lily felt a pang of regret, picturing her mother's face and how she would react if she ever found out. "No, ma'am," she murmured, her voice barely above a whisper. She could almost hear her mother's disappointment. and that thought was unbearable. And what if someone had stolen from you? Mrs. Jenkins' eyes searched hers, looking for a spark of understanding. How would you feel? The question hit home, and Lily's eyes widened as the gravity of her actions truly dawned on her. I'd feel sad and betrayed, she admitted, her voice trembling. The thought of someone else feeling that way that she just had made her stomach churn. Mrs. Jenkins nodded, her expression softening slightly. That's right. Now tell me, Lily, what are you going to do to make this right? The girl took a deep breath, her mind racing. She knew there was no easy fix. No magic spell could ease her mistake, but she was determined to try. I'll apologize and I'll never do it again, she promised, her eyes shining with unshed tears. That's a good start, Mrs. Jenkins said, her voice a gentle reprieve from the earlier storm. But actions speak louder than words. How can you show me, and more importantly, show yourself, that you're truly sorry? Lily thought for a moment, her mind racing with ideas. Then she spoke with a new-found resolve. I'll replace the cookies, and I'll help you with the chores for a week, ma'am, without being asked. Mrs. Jenkins' stern demeanor cracked a little, a hint of a smile playing at the corner of her mouth. That's a good step, she said, her eyes warming slightly. But it's not just about me, Lily. It's about everyone you lied to or taken from. Can you think of anyone else? The question hung in the air, and Lily felt a knot tighten in her stomach. She had taken a cookie from her mother's stash before, and she had fibbed to her teacher about finishing her homework. The realization of her pattern of dishonesty hit her like a ton of bricks. Yes, ma'am, she said, her voice small but determined. I'll make you right with them, too. Mrs. Jenkins nodded, her expression a mix of satisfaction and sadness. That's what I want to hear, she said, her hand still on Lily's shoulder. You're going to learn from this, and you're going to grow. Just remember, every choice you make has a consequence, and it's up to you to decide if those consequences will be positive or will be negative. With those final words, the scolding came to an end, but the lesson was just beginning. Lily knew she had a long road ahead, one of amends and self-reflection. But with Mrs. Jenkins' guidance and her own newfound resolve, she felt ready to face it. She looked up into the woman's eyes and nodded firmly. Yes, ma'am, she said. I'll make sure to. The silence that followed was heavy, but it was a silence filled with promise and change. Mrs. Jenkins released her grip, and Lily took a step back, feeling the weight of her words settle into her bones. Go on, then, Mrs. Jenkins said, gesturing towards the door. Go get started on those apologies. And remember, Lily, I'm always here if you want to talk. With a final nod, Lily turned and left the kitchen, the lesson etched into her heart. The house was quiet as she made her way to her room, her mind buzzing with thoughts of who she wronged and how she could fix it. She knew that it wouldn't be easy, but she was determined to make it right. As she sat on her bed, she took a deep breath, her hand hovering over the phone. The first call would be the hardest, but she had to do it. With a shaky exhale, she dialed her mother's number, her heart racing with every ring. When her mother picked up, Lily took a moment to gather her thoughts before blurting out her confession. Mom, I stole cookies from Mrs. Jenkins today, she said, her voice trembling. She could almost hear the shock on the other end of the line before her mother spoke. Lily, why would you do that? The disappointment in her mother's voice was palatable, and it stung more than she had anticipated. I don't know, I just wanted one, she admitted, feeling small. But then I lied to her when she asked if I had any. There was a pause, and for a moment, Lily feared that she had lost her mother's trust forever. Then she heard a sigh. Lily, we've talked about this before. Lying is not okay, no matter how small the lie might seem. You need to apologize to Mrs. Jenkins and find a way to make it right. I know, Mom, she said, feeling the strain of her own tears. I already promised her that I'd help with chores, and I told her I'll never do it again. Her mother's voice softened. That's a good start. But don't forget to say sorry to her, and mean it, and to me for lying. I'm disappointed, but I still love you. I just want you to be a good person. After that call, Lily felt a mix of relief and dread. She knew that she made the first step towards fixing the mistake, but the biggest one was still to come. She knew Mrs. Jenkins would expect an apology in person. Taking a deep breath, she shielded herself and walked back downstairs. Mrs. Jenkins was in the living room, her hands busy with knitting. She looked up at Lily as she approached, her eyes questioning. Ma'am, she began, her voice still shaking. I wanted to apologize for stealing your cookies and for lying to you. The woman's expression was unreadable, but she set her knitting aside, her hands folded in her lap. I appreciate you coming to me, Lily, but words are just that. They're words. What's important is that you truly understand the impact of your actions. Lily nodded, her eyes beaming with tears. I do, ma'am, she said, her voice barely audible, and I am sorry. Mrs. Jenkins studied her for a moment before speaking. I believe you, she said, her voice gentle, but belief is not enough. You need to prove it. The rest of the week passed in blurs of hard work and heartfelt apologies. Lily made sure to keep her promises, helping Mrs. Jenkins with chores and facing other people she had lied to with newfound sense of humility. Each apology was met with varying degrees of forgiveness, but the act of making amends was more than just her personal growth than a reaction of others. As she worked alongside Mrs. Jenkins, she began to understand the depth of the woman's kindness and the importance of the lessons she was being taught. The sternness in her eyes had given way to a gentle warmth, but Lily had a newfound respect for her. The scolding had been harsh, but it served its purpose, and it shone a light on the path that she needed to follow. By the end of the week, Lily had learned more than she could ever imagine about the power of honesty and the strength of character. And as she stood in Mrs. Jenkins' kitchen, the smell of freshly baked cookies filling the air, she knew that she had not only earned back the trust of her neighbor, but had also found a new ally in her quest to become the best version of herself. With a smile, she took the plate of cookies from Mrs. Jenkins' outstretched hands and offered it to her. Thank you, she said, her voice with sincerity, for everything. Mrs. Jenkins' smile grew, the lines around her neck crinkling. You're welcome, Lily. Remember, we all make mistakes. It's what you do after that defines you. The words stayed with Lily as she left the house, feeling lighter than she had in days. She knew she had much to learn, but she was ready to face the world with a newfound understanding. As she stepped into the cool evening air, she took a deep breath, feeling the sense of peace settled around her. The walk home was quiet. her thoughts a whirlwind of apologies and plans for the future. She knew that the road ahead would be long and sometimes difficult, but she felt equipped to handle it. The sun had set by the time she reached her own front door, the soft glow of the porch light guiding her in. Her mother was waiting for her in the living room, a look of concern etched onto her face. "How did it go?" she asked, her voice tentative. "It was hard," Lily admitted, "but I think it did good." She recounted the week's events. Her mother listened intently, her eyes never leaving her daughter's. When she was finished, her mother pulled her into a tight embrace. "I'm proud of you, Lily," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "It takes a strong person to admit their mistake and to work to correct them." Lily felt a warmth spread through her chest, the weight of her guilt lifting slightly. "Thanks, Mom," she murmured, burying her face into her mother's shoulder. The following days were a blur of school, homework, and helping her mother. Each night, she would sit down and write in her diary, reflecting on the lessons that she learned from Mrs. Jenkins. The words flowed easily now, no longer a jumble of fear and regret, but a clear map of growth. One evening, as she sat at her desk, the smell of dinner wafting from the kitchen, she felt a sense of resolve wash over her. She knew that she couldn't change the past, but she could shape the future. She was determined to make it one of honesty and integrity. Her mother's footsteps grew louder as she approached the door. "Lily," she called out, "dinner's ready." Lily closed her diary and took one last breath before joining her family. She sat down at the table, looked around at her mother and siblings, their faces of a taboo of love and support. "You know," she began, her voice strong and sure, "I've been thinking a lot about what happened with Mrs. Jenkins." Her family looked at her, their expressions a mix of curiosity and concern. "I realized that I might have made some bad choices, and I want to make sure that I don't make them again." Her mother's eyes filled with pride. "What have you learned?" she prompted gently. "That lying is never worth it," she said, looking at each of them in turn. "And the trust is something to be earned and maintained every day." Her siblings nodded, understanding in their eyes. "We're all here for you," her brother said. "Thanks," she replied, a small smile playing on her lips. "I know." The meal was filled with laughter and chatter, a stark contrast to the solemnity of her scolding. Yet Lily couldn't help but feel that this was the beginning of something new, a chapter in her life where she would strive to be honest and trustworthy in all that she did. As the weeks turned into months, Lily's resolve never wavered. She faced each challenge with a newfound strength, each tempting to lie with a firm no. She had become a beacon of trust in her school, a role model for her peers, and a source of pride for her family. Each time she passed Mrs. Jenkins' house, she would offer a small wave of gratitude. For it was in the kitchen, amidst the scolding and the tears, that she had learned one of life's most valuable lessons. The power of truth had not just set her free from the chains of dishonesty, but also illuminated the path to a brighter, more fulfilling future. As Lily grew, she found the scolding not only shaped her character, but also deepened her relationship with Mrs. Jenkins. The woman had become a mentor, a confidant, someone who she could always turn to for guidance. Their bond grew stronger as Lily continued to visit, not just to complete her chores, but to share her thoughts and experience. One particularly warm summer day, Lily found Mrs. Jenkins in the garden. The rich scent of roses and lavender surrounded her as she tended to her beloved plants. The sight of her brought back a flood of memories, the stern look, the gentle touch, the harsh but fair words that had changed her life. "Ma'am," she called out, approaching with a tray of lemonade. "Could I talk to you for a moment?" Mrs. Jenkins looked up from her work, her eyes crinkling with a smile as she took in the young woman before her. "Of course, dear," she said, patting the space next to her on the wooden bench. Lily sat down, the warmth of the sun on her skin a stark contrast to the coolest of the shade beneath the large oak tree. She took a deep breath, feeling a familiar nervousness creep in. "I just wanted to thank you," she began, "for everything that you taught me. I know that day in the kitchen was hard for both of us, but it made me who I am today." Mrs. Jenkins took a sip of the lemonade, her gaze never leaving Lily's. "You don't have to thank me," she said, setting the glass down with a gentle clink. "You did the hard work. I just gave you the push that you needed." They sat in companionable silence for a moment, and then the sound of leaves and the distant laughter of children playing, and then Mrs. Jenkins spoke again. "But tell me, Lily, what have you learned from all of this?" Lily thought for a moment, her eyes drifting over to the vibrant garden, a testament to the beauty of hard work and perseverance. "It's okay to make mistakes," she said finally, "but it's what we do with them that counts. And that's the truth. No matter how hard it might be to face, it's always the best choice." Mrs. Jenkins nodded, her smile proud. "That's the most important lesson of all," she said. "One that will serve you well in life." With the setting sun casting down long shadows across the yard, Lily felt a strange sense of peace settle over her. The scolding that had once filled her with dread had become a treasured memory, a reminder of the woman who would help her shape into the person she was becoming. The lemonade grew warm in the glasses, forgotten as they talked, shared stories, and laughed. It was in these moments that Lily truly understood the depth of Mrs. Jenkins' kindness, her unwavering belief in the goodness of people, and the strength that could be found in admitting one's flaws. As they walked home that evening, the warmth of the sun on her back as she walked, Lily knew that she would carry the lessons that she had learned with her for the rest of her days. Lessons of honesty, lessons of humility, and also the unbreakable bond that could be forged from fires of adversity. Lessons that would guide her through the trials of life and would help her become the person that she was meant to be. In the months that followed, Lily faced way more challenges than she expected, but she never forgot Mrs. Jenkins' stern gaze or her gentle touch. She found that when she was faced with temptation, she could almost hear her voice, reminding her of the path that she had chosen to walk. And with each step that she took, she grew stronger and also more resilient. One day, as she was helping her mother in the kitchen, she accidentally broke a precious vase that had been passed down through generations. Her heart sank, the weight of her mistake heavy in her chest. But instead of panic, or instead of telling lies, she felt a strange calmness. And she knew, in her heart, what she had to do. "Mom," she said, her voice firm and clear, "I broke the vase." Her mother turned to her, her eyes wide with shock. But before she could react, her mother continued, "I know I made a mistake, and I'm sorry, but I'll do anything to fix it." Her mother looked at her for a long moment, and Lily could see the doubt and anger begin to dissolve into something else. Pride. It's okay, she said finally, her voice filled with understanding. Accidents happen, but I'm proud of you for telling the truth. Together, they cleaned up the shattered remains, and Lily offered to save up her allowance to buy a new vase. It wasn't about the material value, it was about the value of the relationship and the value of trust. Life continued to throw curveballs at Lily, but she met each one of them with the same strength and honesty she had found in that faithful day in Mrs. Jenkins' kitchen. And as she grew, so did the stories of her courage and integrity, stories that spread through the town like whispers on the wind. And each time she saw Mrs. Jenkins, she would remember the intense scolding and the gentle guidance that had followed. The woman had become a symbol of good that could come from the most difficult moments, a symbol of strength that laid with her, waiting to be discovered. And in the quiet moments before sleep claimed her, as she laid in bed with her diary open, a fresh page, she would write about her day, her thoughts, and her dreams. But always, she would end with the same words. Thank you, Mrs. Jenkins, for teaching me the power of truth, for in the end, it was the truth that set her free, and it was the lesson that she remembered that Mrs. Jenkins had taught her. The years passed, and Lily grew into the young woman of unshakable integrity. Her reputation as an honest and reliable person spread, and she found that the scolding that she had once feared had become the foundation of her new character. She knew that every choice she made, every word she spoke, had the power to build or to destroy trust, and she chose to build it. One evening, as she was helping her mother prepare dinner, Mrs. Jenkins stopped by with a bouquet of flowers from her garden. The scent of roses and lavenders filled the air, a sweet reminder of their shared past. She took one look at Lily and said, "You've come so far, dear, and I am so incredibly proud of you." Lily took the flowers, her eyes shining with unshed tears. "Thank you," she said, her voice choked with emotion. "I couldn't have done it without you." The two women shared a knowing smile, silent acknowledgement of their bond that had been formed between them. For Mrs. Jenkins had not only taught Lily the value of honesty, but also shown her the true meaning of love and forgiveness. And in the end, it was those lessons that made a true difference. As Lily looked into her mother's eyes, she knew she had not only restored trust in her own home, but had also become a beacon of hope for others. Her story was one of redemption and growth, a testament to the transformative power of a single, hard-learned truth. Mrs. Jenkins stayed for dinner that night, and the three of them shared stories and also laughter. As the evening grew late, Lily walked to her neighborhood home, under the stars above them twinkling like 1,000 silent witnesses to the journey she had just undertaken. "Remember, Lily," Mrs. Jenkins said, her voice soft as they approached her doorstep. "Life is full of choices, but you always choose truth. You'll never go wrong." Lily nodded, feeling the warmth spread to her as she had nothing to do with the summer air. "I'll remember," she promised. "Thank you, truly, for everything." As they watched Mrs. Jenkins disappear into the house. She knew that she would never forget the lesson that she had learned in that kitchen so long ago. It was a lesson that had shaped her into the person she was today, strong, honest, and so ever growing. In the following week, Lily decided to pay her respects to Mrs. Jenkins, knowing that the woman was feeling a bit under the weather. She had bought a bouquet of her own, picked from the garden that she had nurtured with her mother's help, a garden that now held the same promises of growth and rebirth that Mrs. Jenkins had instilled in her. When she tried knocking on the door, she was only met with silence. A knot formed in her stomach as she tried again, her heart racing, and when she finally pushed it open, she found Mrs. Jenkins sitting in her favorite chair, eyes closed and chest still. The room was filled with the scent of stale air and unspoken words. For a moment, Lily felt as though she had been transported back to that fateful day, but instead of fear and guilt, she felt a profound sadness. The woman who had changed her life was gone, but the lessons she had taught remained. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she set the flowers on the table. The same spot where she had felt the weight of the world came crashing down. But now, it wasn't a place of that, but a place of gratitude and reflection. Mrs. Jenkins had left a legacy of truth, one that Lily could carry on forever. And in the days that followed, as she mourned the loss of her mentor, she found solace in the knowledge that she had not only been scolded, but she had been loved. Loved enough to have been taught the hardest, most important lesson of all. As Lily grew, she found that her life was a tapestry of moments woven together by threads of honesty and integrity. Each challenge she faced, each choice she made, was a testament to the woman who had seen her potential and the courage to push her towards it. And so, she continued to live life with truth to her compass, guiding her through the storms and leading her to the moments of pure, unadulterated joy. And, in her heart, she knew that Mrs. Jenkins was still with her, her spirit that was a gentle whisper reminding her of the power that lay within. Years later, Lily found herself standing in front of her old school, now a teacher herself. She had come to share a story with her students, to pass on a lesson that she had learned. Her classroom was filled with young faces, eager and hopeful, as she felt a twinge of nostalgia as she began to speak. "When I was your age," she said, her voice steady, "I made a mistake that could have cost me everything. I stole cookies and lied about it. But it was the scolding that I received from a wise woman named Mrs. Jenkins that changed my life." The students leaned in, their eyes wide with curiosity. She told them about the intensity of that day, the tears and the regret, but also the warmth and the love that had come from the harshness. As she spoke, she saw their faces, the beginning of understanding. "You see," she continued, her hands animated with passion, "honesty is not just about lying. It's about being true to yourself, to others, and to the world around you." The room was silent, the only sound the ticking of the clock on the wall. She looked out on the sea of faces, each one a canvas for the future, and she hoped that her words would resonate and that they would find their way into the hearts of these young souls and help them into the people that they were meant to be. On the school, as the bell rang, signaling the end of the day, the students filed out, their heads bowed in thought. One little girl, her eyes beaming with unshed tears, approached Lily's desk. "Miss," she said, her voice that was trembling, "I did something bad, and I'm scared to tell my mom." Lily's heart ached for her, recognized the fear that she once felt. She knelt down, eyes meeting the girls. "Do you remember my story?" she asked gently. "Sometimes, the hardest thing is to tell the truth, but it's always the right thing." The girl nodded, her expression solemn. "Thank you," she whispered, before running off to find her mother. As Lily watched her go, she knew that Mrs. Jenkins' legacy lived on, not just in her own heart, but in the hearts of those that she touched. She felt a profound sense of purpose, a knowing that she was exactly where she meant to be. The days grew shorter, the leaves turned golden red, a reminder of the cycles of life and the passage of time. Yet the lesson remained, was as vivid as ever, etched into her soul like the rings of a mighty oak. And in the quiet moments, when she would sit down in her own kitchen, the scent of baking cookies filling the air, she would think of Mrs. Jenkins, the sternness now replaced with a warm smile in her memory. The scolding had ended long ago, but the love and the wisdom it brought forth remained, a beacon in her dark, guiding her through the years. The world was vast and filled with temptation, but Lily knew that she had been given the greatest gift of all, the knowledge of her own strength, born from the ashes of her weakness, and she vowed to pass it on, to the light that illuminated the path for others, not just what Mrs. Jenkins had been for her. The story of the girl and the stolen cookie had become a legend in town, a tale of redemption and growth. And as the seasons changed and new generations grew, the lesson remained, a testament to the power of truth and the endearing bond of a community. Lily continued her work as a teacher, her classroom a sanctuary for honesty and growth. Each year she would tell the students of the story of Mrs. Jenkins, the scolding, and the profound impact it had on her life. And each year she would watch as the story worked its magic, opening their eyes to the importance of the choices and the strength of the character. One day, a young boy named Timmy found himself in her class, a mischievous glint in his eyes and a petulance for all tall tales. Lily recognized in him the same potential that she had found in herself all those years ago. She watched him closely, waiting for the moment when he too would face the consequences of his actions. It came sooner than she expected. Timmy had been caught cheating on a test, a serious offense that would have caught him marred on his academic record. But instead of allowing it to define him, she knew that she had the opportunity to help him learn from his mistake, just as Mrs. Jenkins had done for her. "Timmy," she said gently, his eyes holding his, "do you understand why cheating is wrong?" He nodded, his eyes downcast. "It's not fair to the others," he mumbled. "What about the trust between you and me?" she pressed. He looked up, his eyes meeting hers with a hint of surprise. "What do you mean?" "Every time you lie or cheat," she explained, "you're chipping away all the trust that we have. And the trust is foundation for any good relationship, whether it's friends, family, or between teachers and students." The boy swallowed hard, and she could see the wheels turning in his head. "What should I do?" he asked, his voice small. "Tell the truth," she said firmly. "Always, no matter how hard it is, because in the end, the truth will set you free." Timmy took a deep breath, his small shoulders squaring. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice clear. "I'll tell the principal, and I won't do it again." Lily felt a warmth spread through her, a sense of pride and hope. The cycle of growth had continued, and she knew that Mrs. Jenkins would be smiling down on them, her spirit living on the hearts of those who had been touched by her wisdom. As the years went by, Lily's students grew up, moving on to face the world with the lessons that she had taught them. Some stumbled, some soared, but all of them carried with them the same knowledge that it was never too late to choose a path of honesty. And each time she saw a student succeed, each time she heard the good deeds done in the community, she knew that Mrs. Jenkins' legacy not only touched her, but also spread like ripples in a pond, reaching farther than she could have ever imagined. The house on Elm Street remained a symbol of power, of good scolding, the power of truth. And as the seasons changed and the world grew older, the story of the girl, the cookies, and the life-altering lesson remained, a beacon of hope and a gentle reminder of the strength that lies within each of us. The end was not in sight, but rather a horizon that stretched on forever, filled with the promises of a new beginning and the wisdoms of a past. As long as the story was told, Mrs. Jenkins' legacy would live on, inspiring those who heard it to choose a path of honesty and to build a future of trust and integrity.